Sometimes you've just got to brute force the thing to get the success you're looking for. Hi guys, my name's Deepak Shukla, founder at Pearl Lemon Sales. We're a sales training organization based in the UK, USA, as well as serving clients worldwide. And here today in day number 10 of 119 days of cold calling training, we're here to talk about the brute force approach. But before we get into it, feel free to click the link below to get an additional 17 strategies that are not shared in this training. So, look, fundamentally, when it comes to brute force, what I mean by this is if we, for example, refer back to power dialing versus manual dialing, then some of the time it really is just a case of volume, okay? Call volume, and therefore brute forcing an outcome, okay? So we've been learning about your musical tonality when opening, we've been learning about the power, pace, nailing that elevator pitch, as well as your opening tone and the hi versus hey versus hello versus VoIP versus manual dialing. And now we're at a place where fundamentally you should have some sense of the pitch, okay? And we'll be going into pitch breakdown later anyway if you're looking for a script based approach. We'll also talk about we'll come to that later. But yeah, with a brute force approach, it really is just a case of give me, give me 1,000 numbers, 1,000, and load them up into a power dialer. And then, one by one, you can fundamentally start. So one by one, you can fundamentally start placing the cold calls, and you'll do it in sequence. You'll get the numbers calling and spinning through, and it might be just a case of ultimately repetition. Okay, that I use a script and I call enough people, and it generates appointments. Okay, appointments in the diary. Tick appointment. Tick appointment. Tick appointment. Tick appointment. So there's a lot to be said for fundamentally. Did you hit a certain call volume, and how did that work out for you? And if you're able to achieve volumes when it comes to dialing, then you're going to, hopefully reach some level of success. And with a brute force approach, if you're not reaching any success at all, then definitely something needs to be investigated. But the fundamentals of this are that if you've got the volume in terms of phone numbers to sustain a high call volume, then it can just be a case of, you know what, we're just going to bloody brute force it. And, I think that brute forcing implies that there's a lack of sophistication, that you're doing it kind of dirty or not clean. But to be honest with you, with a brute force approach, it's a brute precision, a brute force, like brute force precision should be probably the name of what I'm trying to communicate, because it's not that you're calling half cocked, it's not that you're calling from a list that's not been targeted, it's not that you're calling in absence of an elevator pitch, you've not thought about tonality. It's just more the case of you've got the numbers, why don't you therefore go out and get after it in terms of storming through those numbers to ensure that you fundamentally hit, hopefully, at least one home run amongst all of the plays that you make when you go out to bat. And when you've got a list of, the 1,000 that we spoke about, then it's, when you've got a big list in your diary, all of these numbers, then you're going to stand a greater chance by just literally applying volume to the scenario. So I think that this is something that probably you're broadly familiar with, but I don't ever want brute force to come at a cost of precision. And brute force should only be applied when you've got a volume of numbers. And then therefore you can afford to intentionally experiment and be tactical with the numbers or who that you call. So if you're, for example, calling, like hairdressers, and there's huge numbers. If you're calling accountants, then there's going to be big numbers. If you're calling maybe, recruitment agencies, let's say, maybe there's big numbers. So there's retail outlets. I say retail, but people with, physical, to be honest with you, mobile barbers and accountants don't need to be physical, but fundamentally traditional businesses, there's tons of them. There's thousands, tens of thousands, probably more, which means that you've got big lists which are available to you. And we'll talk about how to build lists and list availability when it comes to cold calling training, but you should really not turn your nose up at brute force when it comes to making those dials. So there you have it, guys. Brute force precision training, or rather calling.
Remember, we've got 17 gated strategies just waiting for you. All you need to do is bing, subscribe, as well as click the link in the description below to get access to those 17. Get some.